Narada, once a human, has ascended to the higher worlds and is a heavenly sage, a demigod, as the mother puts it. His yoga, as we have just briefly mentioned yesterday, followed these three steps. In the first step, he turned a difficulty into an opportunity, born in a very poor family, a low family. He served those who loved the Lord. He served the seers who came to the home. And from there he got the seed of bhakti. Next he meditated upon the name of the Lord. And in the third step he was so much drowned in the bhakti of the Lord that he was granted this vision and was enrolled in the Lord's service, that all over the world he would go and sing the Lord's name. And eventually after his death he ascends to the high heavens, where he dwells in constant companionship with the divine. It's a great exceptional privilege. And therefore he is a privy to the word of fate, because fate is formed on the higher planes of our being. The gods weave it, and final word is to the great goddess fate, whose face is always covered. And she uses the material of our own past deeds, our present thoughts and feelings and impulses, and the future towards which we must move. All these three are material used together to knit and weave our fate, and then it is projected and precipitated into the material world as a set of circumstances and situations. And we never quite get to know of it because, one, we have forgotten the past deeds. Second, we are hardly conscious of our present thoughts and feelings. And third, we don't know the future towards which we move. And most of all, we are always blaming outside people and situations and circumstances. But fate is woven from the thread of our own making. So we, in a certain sense, spin our fate. But we don't know it. So Narad, as we have seen, comes from those higher worlds, and as he descends, he begins to experience the sorrow, the suffering, the pang that is there in earth, the sob, which is characteristic of earth because it's a realm of ignorance. There are two levels at which the play goes on. One where nature is centered around the ego, and when ego becomes the center of life, then the play is an ignorant play, and lower nature, full of ignorance, obscurity, it is attracted towards it. So when life is centered around ego, then lust, greed, anger, fear, all these are natural consequences. We may try to work upon it 10,000 times. It's like the head of a hydra. You cut 2 and 4 will spring up because the center is the ego. And the other is the higher play, which is centered around the divine principle. So when the play is centered around divine, then higher forces, compassion, love, beauty, strength, courage, all these naturally come because they are attributes of the divine being. But the problem is in the higher worlds, because it is centered around the divine principles, the gods are simply projections. So the divine projects them and draws them back. And the sense of individuality which is required for the fullness of the play, it is not there. So the divine consciousness plunges into matter and slowly the emergence takes place. And there is a great sense in it. Because of the slow emergence, something gets rooted here like a seed, and the psychic being begins to develop. So instead of the divine principle in the higher worlds, here we have the psychic being. And the more life is centered around the psychic being, the more the play changes from the lower rhythm to a higher rhythm. So that's the beauty and that's the purpose of this play. And Narada knows all this, so he is descending, and in the higher worlds he is singing the name of Vishnu, but as he comes lower and lower, he is full of compassion looking at the human misery. And then he begins to sing not just the glory of the Lord, but of God's birth in time and space, because that is what gives hope to man. We don't understand what a magnificent sense, the concept is a wrong word, but for the sake of thought we may say the conception of avatarhood carries. It means that God descends and becomes human. He touches matter. He touches this earth. He's not just above. So he becomes like us. And therefore there is a hope and a chance for us to become like him. So therefore Narada, as he comes down to earth and feels the sob of suffering, what does he tell to inspire hope? We read these lines. He sang the name of Vishnu and the birth and joy and passion of the mystic world, and how the stars were made and life began, and the mute regions stirred with the throb of a soul. He is telling human beings, hearken, take courage, look how the stars were formed, that state of division when everything was plunged into the densest darkness, and yet the divine made a garland out of it. So, courage and fear not. And then these last 4 lines, he sings of darkness yearning towards the eternal light, and love that broods within the dim abyss, and waits the answer of the human heart, and death that climbs to immortality. So this world is made in a paradoxical way, very interesting way. In the higher worlds, there is no ignorance. The movements are faultless, unerring, flawless. So higher nature is completely in tune with the divine and his will. And therefore, because it's perfectly aligned and follows the divine, therefore there is no suffering, no pain. As it comes into the field of obscurity, pain comes to release it. It awakens in it a yearning, a longing, a throb of sorrow and suffering. So behind every suffering, there is a longing. If we really look closely, even intellectually we analyze suffering, behind every suffering of every form there is a longing. And behind the longing there is a yearning. What is the yearning? Yearning for that perfect love, that perfect bliss, for that immortality which we have lost in the realm of death. So Narad reminds us, he immediately turns all this suffering and pain into a deep yearning. He sang of the truth that cries from night's blind deeps, and the mother wisdom hid in nature's breast, and the idea that through her dumbness works, and the miracle of her transforming hands. So he sings about the truth that is yet to be born. We can take a simile of this idea, and we can see how Sri Aurobindo has given this song to us, that when a seed is buried inside the mud, and all the waste of the earth and all the darkness, all this is being poured into it. And if the seed could speak, it would say, "Oh my God, what a fate I have. I have to be buried in this darkness, to be fed by cow dung and all that is dirty." And somebody who knows would say, "Do not worry, you are going to blossom into a wonderful tree." "Oh, is it? But I don't see anything." "Wait, you shall see. Have faith. There is a truth that is working. There is a wisdom that is working. That's why slowly you must rot. The outer layer of the ego will rot, and then the inner truth will spring up." How do you know that this seed will turn into a tree? And Narada would say, because it is the idea which is implanted in the seed. This is the answer to all these questions that geneticists raise. That how come a particular seed or a particular set of genes necessarily unfold into that particular tree or plant or human beings? Because deep inside there is the idea. So what is the idea implanted in earth? The idea that has flown down from God. It is that which is implanted. So its destiny is inevitably to become divine. Nothing and nobody can stop it. It has nothing to do with appearances, politics, government. Even if the world were smashed 10,000 times, this is the destiny. For a very simple reason, because in earth, in matter, divine himself is planted there as a seed. So nobody can stop it because it's the inevitable compulsion in things. So why Narada is singing of this? Because he sees and feels the sorrow of humanity and tells them, "Wait, hearken, take courage. A new life is waiting for you as you come up." So Narada sings of the idea that through her dumbness works, and the miracle of her transforming hands, of life that slumbers in the stone and sun. Even in stone, there is life. The sun is living, the river is living, everything is alive. We don't know how to connect. And that is the great secret we are here to learn. We think it is dead, inanimate, but even a stone can be charged and become alive. That is the whole idea behind, in temple one worships a stone and there is a pran pratishtha, and the stone itself becomes something of a reflection or a symbol of the divine. Not just a symbol, but a power. People go to Tirupati and get their wishes fulfilled. And a strict scientist would say, how is it? It's not possible. It's a stone. And there are some crude, vulgar minds who would come here and say, why? I mean, somebody had once told me, and I was shocked that this is the kind, how we think, that Samadhi is but a slab of stone. How can we understand that what is the miracle that lies below it? There is nothing which is not alive. Everything is alive because existence is everywhere, the divine is everywhere. And even a grain of sand is alive and retains the impressions. And if we know, it can once again recreate that miracle. That is why in ancient time we will see very often when people blessed or even cursed, but better we talk about blessing, they would pick up water, pour it in their hands and say, this water, all my punyas and all my good deeds, I charge it with this and bless. Or they will pick up dust and they will take a pledge. Why? Because it's all alive. It carries the memory. And by that power, that force, it can be charged. So Narada is a seer. He is not an ordinary mortal. So he sings of what? He sings of life that slumbers in the stone and sun, waiting to come out and emerge. And mind subliminal in mindless life. And in the life, mind is asleep. So even that which appears, even nowadays scientists say that even an atom behaves in such a way as if it is making a choice. As if it is living, it is making a choice. So even in amoeba, there is the stirring of mind. It chooses. It's the first unicellular organism. Cells carry a mind of their own. They are not mindless. And watches have life. Shobindra speaks about it, that you will be startled if I tell you that watches have life. And plants have mind. So there is Narada revealing this truth, or rather Sri Aurobindo through the words of Narada. And the consciousness that wakes in beasts and men. And beasts and men are stirring deep inside with the great consciousness waiting to be born and emerge, the consciousness of truth and light. So this Narada sings. And what else? He sang of the glory and marvel still to be born, of Godhead throwing off at last its veil, of bodies made divine and life made bliss, immortal sweetness clasping immortal might, heart sensing heart, thought looking straight at thought. So when everybody is crying, oh, life is so unbearable, miserable, Narada is telling them it's a mask, bear, thou shalt find thy road to bliss. Oh, there is nothing like love, there is nothing like sweetness. No, don't say that. That will come one day. This aspiration, this hope is there and waiting for its full fruition. So he sings of immortal sweetness, clasping immortal might. Normally upon earth we find either sweetness or strength. And this is a great profound truth Sri Aurobindo reveals. In the synthesis he speaks of this, that one of the difficulties of transformation is that when sweetness develops that side in a human being, it is at the expense of strength. So all people who are very sweet, very decent, they carry this soft power, they become low in strength, invariably, because that's how it develops. And if strength develops, it is often at the price of sweetness. So people who are strong-willed, strong-natured, They can be ruthlessly harsh because that aspect is missing. But the ideal is to develop both of them together. The beneficent Shiva and the terrible Rudra, the fair armed Gauri, full of love and compassion and warmth and sweetness, and the dark Mother Kali who slays without a thought. They are two aspects of the same truth. And in us too, both must come together. So, Narada is revealing the truths of immortal sweetness and immortal strength. Heart sensing heart, thought looking straight at thought, and the delight when every barrier falls. Every line is such a marvel. What prevents us from joy? We prevent ourselves from joy because we have shut ourselves in so many prison houses. If I have this, then there will be joy. If I have that, then there will be joy. Each thing is like a prison bar. So joy comes but through that narrow, and as many desires, that many prison bars. So poor joy has to find a little hole to get into us. And because there is hardly any giving, we want to clasp it, therefore very soon it becomes stale and sullied. What is the process? Very simple. Let go of the barriers. The barriers are built by ego and desires. They prevent delight. So Narada reveals this great truth and the delight when every barrier falls. That is why love brings joy. Because love is one of the first means, and love is also the last means with which we can demolish every barrier. Spontaneously it falls. But when we are in a lower consciousness, then it is only for a while. And when we are in the higher consciousness, then it's immortal and eternal. And the transfiguration and the ecstasy. And so when he reveals these subtle and profound truths, and as he sang, the demons wept with joy. This is a marvelous line. That look, we have been slaying demons every time, but they too have a role to play. What is their role? We have this famous story in Amrit Manthan that when Kalkut wish came and it poisoned the whole ocean, two creatures survived. Not two creatures, but one Shiva. He drank the poison. Everybody ran away. The gods and the titans ran away. And the serpents. That's how they say that all the serpents drank that poison and they remain alive. So, it is said that the titans, at one place Sri Aurobindo says in one of his aphorisms, that we must respect the titan too because he has borne the burden of bearing the poison in himself. What is the poison? All the bitterness, anger, fear, suspicion. So one has to feel sorry for him, not angry at him. That's why when somebody is very angry, while the first reaction is respond with anger because the venom is spewed and we swallow it. But we should actually feel sorry that look how much the person is suffering. If a little bit of anger thrown at us can make us suffer, how much that person must be suffering who is carrying all the time the anger inside. That's why we see the life of snake is so much full of fear, suspicion. Slide this thing, it will strike, not without thinking. It will live in a hole. It is the most fearful creature in the world. It can kill a human being, but it's so afraid. Goes down into a hole, hides inside darkness because it carries the poison inside. And what is its solution? Its solution is when it has a glimpse of Shiva. So here, Narada is telling them, you too have hope. You too can go to Shiva, fall at his feet, and he will embrace you. So as he sang, the demons wept with joy, foreseeing the end of their long, dreadful task and the defeat for which they hoped in vain. Every titan comes and wants to dissolve in the Lord. That's why he puts the most impossible conditions for death. Because he puts such conditions that ultimately only the Supreme Lord has to do something and make them dissolve. In one of the aphorisms, Sri Aurobindo says, if I cannot give the embrace, I must give the wrestling to God. Because that is the only two ways that our ego can get crushed. One, the embrace of love, which is beautiful. Because when the ego is crushed in love, it is delight. Or the embrace of the wrestler. That's why he says, if I cannot be Rama, I would be Ravana. Because in both cases, I would be dissolving in the Lord. That's why Ravana also wanted dissolution. He wanted to go back fast. He was, after all, a watchman of the Lord, gatekeeper. And he did stupid things. And therefore he was born as Ravana. And the Lord tells him, don't worry, I'll come. Oh, you will come. I want a shortcut. He says, look, it's an opportunity of a lifetime that you are going down to earth. 7 lives and you will become perfect and you can come to me. Or 3 lives and you can get back as you were. So the foolish part is that he doesn't choose the path of perfection. He chooses the shortcut. So shortcut means 3 lives and one dissolves into the Lord. They know they will be dissolved. Mother speaks of this in the agenda where he says, 2 of the asuras accepted dissolution. And the third one told her, I know that I will be defeated. I know that you will triumph. But before that, I want to create as much chaos as I can. And the mother says, fine, go ahead, let's see how much chaos you can create. Why does she allow it? Because that thing has to be exhausted out of nature. Human beings carry that. Somebody asked her, why don't you straight away dissolve them, finish them? Mother said, earth will not remain because the very blood and bones of human beings, our very body is stuffed with falsehood. That's why it reacts to illness. It becomes ill. If the body responded to the light of truth, it would not be ill. It responds to falsehood. It immediately catches a negative vibration. See, the moment there is a pain, immediately thoughts will come. What if I have this problem? Is it something serious? And the body instantly absorbs it and becomes more stiff. But tell the body, no, it is nothing. Only for 5 seconds it will remain. Very soon the barrage will come again. No. Maybe this is something serious. What if it is cancer? What if I get tetanus? What if I had a strange case that the calf of a calf was bit by a dog and died of rabies. The cow gave milk and there was a lot of fear in people that what if we are all going to die of rabies? So 3 doctors told them, the last one was me, that no, there is no way this can happen. So then look how the mind gets conditioned. So after a few days, the person comes and asks, my son has begun to lick me sometimes. Is it developing rabies? I said, this has nothing to do with rabies. There is no such symptom in rabies. Nobody licks like this. How the mind, instantly the body catches. So falsehood is everywhere. And if it is destroyed like that, earth will not remain. So it has to be, there is a purging, there is a change, there is a slow dissolution and a transfiguration. So demons are very happy. Narada sings to them. And what is he singing? Who is going to bring that release? Savitri herself, but that is still not disclosed to us. And as he sang, the demons wept with joy, foreseeing the end of their long, dreadful task, and the defeat for which they hoped in vain, and glad release from their self-chosen doom, and return into the one from whom they came. They chose to revolt against the law. That's how the whole origin of... They chose to separate because they didn't understand the ways of the divine. They couldn't bear that love and bliss. And because they chose it, they plunged into the darkness. But it had its own purpose. That later on we are told. Here there is only a hint that is given. That these demons have a term and end. So we should not worry. And who will bring a term and end to them? The divine is looking after it. We don't have to worry. And how he will bring the change? By the power of that love and light. This is his method. So they are happy that they are going to go back to the one. Because once they take this, they have to go through the full cycle. He who has conquered the immortal seats came down to men on earth, the man divine. So Narada, out of compassion, out of service to the Lord, is coming down to earth from the immortal seats. And of course, he always carries a message, the word of fate. And now there is a beautiful description of how he comes. As darts a lightning streak, a glory fell, nearing until the rapt eyes of the sage looked out from luminous cloud, and strangely lined his face, a beautiful mask of antique joy. Appearing in light, descended where arose King Aswapati's palace to the winds in Madra, flowering up in delicate stone. So as he comes down, his face begins to, it assumes the form. And this is a form of joy that has been there from ages, from eternity. Antique joy. Not because he is suddenly seeing something new, that is a temporary joy. But antique joy, the joy of the ancient of the ancients, because he is constantly in nearness with the Lord. So, the sign of a God lover, this is another sign. Among the various signs of the God lover, one of the signs is that the person is always full of sweetness and joy in the heart. He is always full of love because he shares that love and joy of the Lord. So, this bhakti gives this. So, Narada is full of that joy and his face is beaming with that joy as he comes down. And then, suddenly to his vision, Aswapati's palace in Madras. Madradesh is, I sometimes fancy it was Pondicherry because Madradesh is Madras of the later times. And maybe this is my fanciful imagination, but certain imaginations are beautiful. So I imagine that it was Pondicherry where King Aswapati was there and Narada the sage must have descended somewhere. Please don't quote me. There is no reference to this. This is not hard history. This is just a beautiful fantasy. There welcomed him the sage and thoughtful king. So the king welcomes him. At his side, a creature beautiful, passionate, wise. So his queen is, she is a very sattvic lady. That is how it is described. She is in ignorance. Aswapati is a sage, but his wife, the queen, she is a sattvic woman. And she is wise, but within her own limitations. And of course, she is beautiful, aspiring like a sacrificial flame, skyward from its earth seat through luminous air. Queen browed, the human mother of Savitri. So here in 3 lines, Sri Aurobindo is given the description of a sattvic person. She is not just an ordinary person, at the same time she is not sage. That's why she would ask questions which are questions of ignorance. And yet it is at a high peak of human life. If this was a Rajasic or a Tamasic person, perhaps Narada would not have cared to reply. But because she is sattvic natured, in her being there is the fire of sacrifice. Yagna is going on inside her. She is keen to know. She is a seeker. She is wise. She is brilliant. She is beautiful. And she is sitting by the side of the king. There for an hour, untouched by the earth's siege, they ceased from common life and care and sat, inclining to the high and rhythmic voice, while in the measured chant the heavenly seer spoke of the toils of men and what the gods strive for on earth, and joy that throbs behind the marvel and the mystery of pain. So they welcome him into the private chambers. They call it a day, not for holding a census in the state, but because the heavenly seer has come. So they want to hear of him. Narada, sing to us. What does Okay, so the pause, that is the pain, and the light that is waiting behind. So Narada sings of the mystery and marvel of pain. What is the marvel of pain? We often say, oh God, what cruel fate, pain has come. We seldom say, thank God, pain has come. Pain is what shifts us out of our comfort zone. When do we feel pain actually? When we are pushed out of our comfort zones. And it's such a beautiful opportunity to progress. Only thing is, we lose the opportunity and fall back to the old ways. So another pain, yet another pain. But pain is the corrective. It is nature's corrective to tell us that the life we are leading is not perfect. If pain doesn't come, we would believe that life is so good, so beautiful. Mother's grace is with me. But actually, Mother's grace is not yet started working. It is saying, play with toys. So a time comes when Mother says, enough toys. Please, now you have to go from flower room to AVP. So then, all the lovely teachers, very nice ones in kindergarten and flower room, they are removed. And there is another part which comes. Free progress. Now you make a choice, and as you choose, consequences will come. So pain comes to remind us that life is imperfect, that love is imperfect, that joy is imperfect, existence is imperfect. And it's a very, very beautiful reminder which pushes us. As one place Mother says, pleasure is a deception. So from the divine point of view, when everything is going according to whatever we wish, it is pleasure, full of pleasure, then we should be very, very vigilant. It means either God has forgotten us or pain is waiting round the corner. One of the two things. And when, of course, this is not about those who go through the sunlit path. In the sunlit path also difficulties will come. Same challenges will come. Problems will come. Others will think, the fellow is in so much misery. But one will not experience the pain. In fact, one will experience the delight. Because every pain will become a transmuting hand of grace. But in ordinary life, pleasure is something which totally traps us. It hooks us like a drug. And we forget ourselves, we forget our aim, we forget the divine, we forget everything, life's goal. So pain comes to shake us from that. That's why Narada, right now only one word, later on he'll elaborate upon it. He sings to Aswapati of the mystery and marvel of pain. Maybe he's preparing him for something which is going to come in his life. He sang to them of the lotus heart of love, with all its 1,000 luminous buds of truth, which quivering sleeps veiled by apparent things. It trembles at each touch, it strives to wake, and one day it shall hear a blissful voice, and in the garden of the spouse shall bloom, when she is seized by her discovered Lord. How beautiful these lines are. Which is the garden of the spouse. How beautifully in Krishna Sri Aurobindo says, and nature shudders with an ecstasy. All nature is a wide, enamored pause, hoping her Lord to touch, to clasp, to be. So this nature, behind all its movements, there is hidden the bud of love, which is waiting to bloom. And when it blooms, it is an amazing bud. It can bloom into 1,000-fold ways, because it is the one power that reaches out to everything in creation. In 1,000,000 ways it can bloom, and it is waiting behind the heart, waiting for that touch. And as it begins to bloom, every part of nature begins to thrill with the ecstasy. This is one of the things that happens in a bhakta, that thought, feeling, will, body, everything is seized by that bliss. So here we have that beautiful description. He sang to them of the lotus heart of love, with all its 1,000 luminous buds of truth, which quivering sleeps veiled by apparent things. It trembles at each touch, it strives to wake, and one day it shall hear a blissful voice. Each touch, our outer being feels it pleasant or painful, but the heart of love wakes up to that because it feels the touch of the lover. Only the ego feels hurt and pained, but the soul rejoices at every touch. This is so beautiful. One of the mystic poets, Bulle Shah, how he puts it. He says that, your touch, it strikes a blow, and I am cut to pieces, and with every drop of blood, I dance with joy. This was the famous song, Chaiya Chaiya, which got transmogrified into a most horrible song on the train. But actually, this was the original song. He says, I am standing below your sword, and you are cutting me to bits and pieces. But with every slicing, every bit of my body, every bit of my being which is cut, every part of the ego which is struck hard, my inner being cries with joy and says, oh my beloved, and I dance in a greater and greater ecstasy. So it is waiting to disclose itself, and every touch it feels as a touch of joy, because it feels the touch of the beloved. And in the garden of the spouse shall bloom, when she is seized by her discovered Lord, a mighty shuddering coil of ecstasy crept through the deep heart of the universe, among the many signs of God love. And this is there in Narada's Bhakti Sutra. See, the entire Narada Bhakti Sutra is there. What is Bhakti? Bhakti is busy singing the name of the Lord. So we see Narada is doing it. Bhakti always sees in everything the beauty of the Lord, the wisdom of the Lord, the unfolding of the Lord. Even pain it sees as the touch of the Lord. It rejoices in the name of the Lord. So all the entire Bhakti Sutra, and even the physical signs which are described in Bhakti Sutra, the tears flowing through the eyes, the naturing, even the very hairs on the body, they stand as if they are shuddering with ecstasy, as if somebody has touched them gently. The kind of thrill we experience when we are close to a joy which for a long time we have sought, and we are finally getting a glimpse of it. The voice of the Lord. This is what is called as Shravan, Manan, thinking, and the very touch of the Lord. So entire range of bhakti. So he experiences, the whole universe experiences this word of Narada crept through the deep heart of the universe. So every time somebody takes the Lord's name, very often we think work is only jumping around and running around like monkey from morning to night. Most of the time it is done for the ego, or mechanically, or out of vain ambition. We want to either, or many times simply because we are restless, because it's very difficult to sit quiet. So instead of doing something else, it's better to work. But what is the greatest work? To take the name of the Lord. Why? It has the power to radiate into the whole universe. So when Narada sings, that name of the Lord vibrates to the farthest end of the universe. That is how the name has to be taken. I still remember what a joy. That is something we miss sometimes. Sitting at the Samadhi, of course, Samadhi is there and there is the silence and occasional shoutings. Don't sit like this and don't sit like that. But way back, I still remember when Niruddha and Amalda will sometimes exchange a few pleasantries. And I still remember when either of them would use the name of Shurabindo. There was so much love in that name that you may be sitting at the other end and you feel a joy. At least I used to feel it. It never came like, oh, some people, why talking? No, there was such a joy because their heart was so full of joy. For love of the Lord. So when somebody takes the name of the Lord, that name is the biggest work. When mother was asked, what should I do when I cannot, do work? So mother says, why? When you cannot work physically, then you can work upon oneself. And you can call the Lord and take the name of the Lord. So this is the biggest work that one can do. So what is Narada's work? Nothing. He is a free being going around everywhere. And all that he does is Hari, 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 Om Namo Narayana. And as he sings, the demons weep with joy. As he sings, the heart of the bhaktas are filled with love. As he sings, dumb matter begins to quiver. As he sings, nature shudders with an ecstasy. As he sings to the far end of the universe, bliss awakens even in dumb matter. This is the work of works which we miss out on. All other works we do. If only like Narada, whether in that world or this world, we can sing the name of Mother Sri Aurobindo, Mother Sri Aurobindo. This Champaklalji, what is his life? Somebody asked him about his life and he gave a very beautiful answer. He says, what is my life? Mother Sri Aurobindo, Mother, Mother Sri Aurobindo, Mother. And he wrote like that, Ma, some of the beautiful patterns he has made. And what a transformation. The very looks of him one could see that here is, if one ever conceived of a rishi of the old, of course every flower in mother's garden was beautiful, each one of its own kind, but Champaklalji was exceptional. How did he manage it? Just mother, 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 mother. So here Narada sings, and as he sings, all the quarters are filled with joy. Crept through the deep heart of the universe, out of her matter stupor, her mind's dreams, she woke, she looked upon God's unveiled face. All in that stupor, darkness, blindness, something woke up. Oh, there is someone taking the name of the Lord. How beautiful. This is the work of works. If we too can take the name of the Lord with that love, everything around will wake up to that joy and begin to look at God behind the apparent truth of things. So we will stop here and continue after 10 minutes.